In today's video, all about bloating and how we can fix it. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Ravella from ProPhysique.com, and today's question comes from right here on my Instagram direct message. I want to talk to you guys about bloating, okay, and what it can mean and how we can resolve it, and potentially what some of the resolutions can mean for us, long-term and short-term, because bloating is something that leaves us all very uncomfortable from time to time, and it's something that, as a coach, I really focus on with my athletes, especially competitors when they're trying to get on stage, because a tight core is going to be a part of that. And there's some things I've learned over the years, both with myself and coaching athletes, that can really have a big impact on bloating. So first of all, what is bloating? Typically, we think of it as like inflammation or pressure in our stomach and our intestines and our midsections that kind of pushes out, and it can leave us uncomfortable. The first time I experienced a lot of bloating was in my early 30s, and it took me a minute to realize that it was actually food sensitive. So this might be something that you can look at right away, okay? Is there a food, is there a food group, is there something that you're consuming that you notice leaves you bloated shortly after or gives you some digestive distress, most commonly things like diarrhea and gas and bloating that are associated with those foods? So we can actually start to deal with this and not realize it. And so for years, I was actually doing this. I was actually continuing my diet the same, and it wasn't until I accidentally, and I say accidentally because it wasn't an intentional practice, I changed my diet so slightly that I removed whey protein. And I realized I have a sensitivity to whey. So why did I remove whey protein? Well, I was dieting down for fat loss, and I was actually quite sick of drinking my protein shakes, and they didn't leave me feeling great. So what I did was I swapped it out for some whole foods. So lo and behold, I started losing weight faster, I had more energy, my bloating went away, my waistline shrank, and I realized, wow, this entire time I was actually causing inflammation. So the first thing to do is to look at the foods that we're eating and make sure that our bodies are able to digest them. Because what happens when we eat something that we're sensitive to, it actually can create inflammation, and it can create problem in the digestive system, in the intestines, and you might not even be absorbing the food that you're eating. It might be causing problems for not only those foods, but the other foods that are in the intestinal tract, meaning you're not getting the absorption of all the minerals, the nutrients, the calories that you need to be performing. We can run into situations like this all the time. Now, the other thing that I'll tend to notice is that people will avoid eating fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables have things called polyphenols in them, which really help us reduce the inflammation markers in our blood. So I really like to include fruits and vegetables throughout the day. However, you have to understand that that is a slippery slope. I often have competitors, clients of mine, tell me that they feel completely bloated by the end of the day and they wake up with a flat stomach. Well, why would that be? Well, if you're consuming foods that are very difficult to break down, and I'm going to give you a couple as examples. If you overconsume things like cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and there may be some others that are common, but those are the ones that typically bodybuilders will focus on eating. Why? Tons of volume, really high satiety, low calories, lots of fiber. But the point is, the digestive system can only handle so much of this. So what happens if the digestive system kind of gets slowed down? These things can actually digest so slowly that they ferment, meaning they're getting broken down and the gas bubbles are escaping into our intestines. So this type of bloating will happen throughout the day. And then what will happen is you'll go to bed, it'll have time to catch up the digestive system, and the next day you'll be fine until you start eating again in the same manner. So it might just come down to reducing a couple servings a day of things like broccoli or cauliflower. Again, these are very common foods for bodybuilders. Now, another thing that very few people realize, and honestly, it's something that took me a few years to realize, is that a lot of the vitamins and minerals in our foods are only fat soluble. It's very common for people to undertake a diet that is very low in fat. I have people reach out to me, we get on a phone consult, I look at their meal plan, and I realize they're eating downwards of 10, 15 grams of fat a day. That is a big red flag for me. Why? Well, first of all, that's not enough fat to positively impact your hormonal balance, right? Our hormones all come derived from fat intake, okay? So if you're not getting enough fat, there's gonna be that issue. However, if vitamins and minerals are only fat soluble, which many of them are, you're not absorbing those things, which can cause digestive issues. So bringing up your fat intake My suggestion is usually to get around 8 to 10 grams of fat per meal. Now that can be adjusted based on the size of the meal or the frequency that you eat, but getting some fat with each meal is gonna ensure that your body has what it needs to break down these foods. So do not avoid fat with the idea that eating less fat is going to make you less fat. Again, calories are what decide fat loss, okay? How many calories we consume. It's not down to the carbohydrates and the fats, though there is a set preferential range. And since you came on my Instagram and asked me this question, I'm gonna assume you're familiar, but maybe some of you aren't. I have a free calculator, guys. If you go there, plug in a bunch of information, set in your goal, it's gonna tell you how many protein, carbs, and fats, and it'll even break down how many meals that you want.